Okay, for tonight's lab assignment, I want you to work on creating a parterre garden. So we looked at those as part of the lecture. These are a very classical form of garden. And so I want you to draw one to scale. So this is getting you used to drawing in plan view to a scale. So we worked on scaling a few weeks ago and using that tool. So time to start applying it and getting symbols and pen to paper. So the things that I'll need, first I'm going to take about an 11 by 17 or 12 by 18 sheet of paper. I actually have a smaller sheet of sketch paper that I'm going to use first. I have a rolling glide, but some kind of a parallel thing to draw with. Also a triangle, a few pens. We'll be drawing in black and white tonight, but you're welcome to color if you want color. I'm gonna get a little triangle. I'm gonna bring out my circle templates because those always come in handy. Got a few different varieties there. I think I'm gonna use for mine, I'm going to use scale that's architectural. A bunch of things there. Got some pens over here that I can play with. Let's see what else I got. Some pens. Pens to use. And so as you're starting design, don't be afraid to sketch things out. I actually find that sometimes, because I didn't grow up with computers, that sometimes sketching things out at first helps me be in that creative space before then I start picking up the tools to draft. So I'm just going to do a quick parterre garden. I'm just going to sketch out my ideas, and this should be pretty loose and free. I'm not going to get too hung up. I'm going to do a pretty straightforward one as an example for you guys. So I'm going to have something happening at the center, and then these little kind of landscape spaces, almost like a square, that come off of it. So I can do kind of an outer guideline to help me, right? So first I'm just sketching to get the idea on paper, and then I will start formally drafting it to actually get it to a particular scale, right? So it's really just a tool to help me not get hung up on the big piece of white paper and start thinking creatively. So I'm going to have a kind of a parterre that is going to be very symmetrical and balanced. I like the look of the one with the circle of the trees. So I'm going to integrate something like that into mine. And of course I'm just roughing this out. So I'm going to have to work on these spaces to actually fit the trees in and not put them in my pathway. I'm going to have some kind of maybe a statue of a person right there in the center. Maybe I'll have some little topiaries on the corner of these. And I'll probably just go ahead and box the, have the traditional boxwood hedges around each area. So that's kind of like my rough sketch, right? Just quick and easy of how I might think of my parterre. Again, the characteristics of that is that they're kind of mirrored, so here's mirrored one way, right, where you can almost fold it on itself. This is mirrored two ways where it can be folded on itself. So this is very symmetrical. Some parterre gardens are only symmetrical one way, but they typically they use a lot of geometry and they're very balanced. So I've got kind of a rough idea of what I'm doing, and now I want to start drawing it to scale. So I have a little drafting surface here, and I've taped down my, this is a 12 by 18 piece of paper in each corner. Try to get that further up for you guys so you can see the maximum amount that I can squeeze onto my little small space here. So I think about 2/3 of it are going to show up. And I put it on a board just so I can keep track of it. I've got a scale, architectural scale. So I'm kind of looking at my probably 1/4 scale to 1/8 scale for mine, but you can set whatever scale you want, right? I'm not going to limit you. If you want to do a really big space at a smaller scale, even going into engineering, that's fine. Know that an 1/8 inch scale and a 10 scale are about the same thing. So if I look at this space, if I look at 1/4 inch scale, I have a total of 0 to 46 feet in about 12 inches, right? So I'm not sure that's big enough for my parterre garden. So I'm going to go at the other end of the blade to the 1/8 inch scale, and I see from 0, I have up to 100 feet if I'm at 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to go with that, try and set it up so I can draw most effectively. So I'm going to set my parterre. I'm going to make it, let's make it a good 90 feet long. And then let's see, what's a good, maybe 90 feet by maybe 60. That seems like a nice size. 90 by 60. So I'm just kind of marking my dimensions here. Decided I'm doing a 90 by 60 space. I kind of just got those marked out. I'm going to try and draw them in. Should have marked that space better, but oh well. Okay. So right now I'm just roughing it out in pencil. I'm going to carefully roll my rolling glider. If you have a T-bar, sometimes those work a little bit better because they don't tend to tilt as quite as much. Do it the other way. Hopefully it stayed square. We will see. Sometimes I can square it off by lining these. I'm using the cross hatches. So I'm gonna that way. And a core. See, it started tilting. This way. Got to be careful when you're rolling. Okay. Yeah, it's this particular surface doesn't want to stay nice and straight. I'm just going to have to do the best I can and try and line things up using these measurement guides. Okay, this didn't get narrowed. I'm going to measure it really quick just to see if I maintained my dimensions here. Okay. It's a little shy, but only like a foot or two, so not too much. Maybe just a hair. I might correct it just a hair. Right. So I've got kind of the limits of my garden. At this time's a good time to write my scale. 1/8 of an inch is equal to 1 foot 0 inches, right? And it's always a good idea to use a graphic scale. So in that, you practice that early on in this class, right? Might look like this. Got 0. This is 1 inch, so that would be 8 feet, and then 16 feet. So I have both my written and my graphic scales for reference. I could also, always important on your plans to indicate north. So indicate north. So use a little circle template, create a quick north arrow. Using the guidelines of my template. And for pen. Got all my foundational stuff on there. And so I am going to start measuring my site to make it fit. I'm probably going to do this in pencil first. So I know that I'm 90 feet long. And so the halfway point of that is going to be 45 feet. 42, 44, 45 is my halfway point. Now, I know that I kind of sketched out a thing where I've got my pathways coming into this middle walkway. So generally, when I'm creating a pathway that's kind of serving a site that might be like a large residential lot, I generally am going to make this pathway, if I want to have two people walk side by side comfortably, I might make that 6 feet wide. So I'm going to mark the width of my pathway, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to have a 6 foot wide pathway throughout my design. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to find the center point. So we're at half of 60, right at 30 feet, 28, 29, 30. And then I'm going to create a pathway that's 6 feet wide here too. 3, about like here, 6. Okay. So now I can kind of carry those lines across using my little handy dandy rolly glider, assuming it behaves and doesn't get too wonky. Okay. So I can start carrying that line. Now, these are light construction lines. This is where those blue pencils can come in handy. I'm just using a regular pencil, trying to do it dark enough that you can see it, but then I can remove it when I'm done with these. Tricky. I have this little cardboard thing, which is not my rolling glider's not very happy with. Let's see. Try and do this. Right. So now I've got the 2 6 foot paths intersecting. I'm going to set a couple. I know that's about 6 feet wide. That's about the right size circle. I'm going to align it to the center, centering it here, centering it here. And now I can kind of set up an approximate circle. You know, the smiley templates work really well. A compass works really well. Smaller templates work well for that. And now I'm going to come in, and I know I want this path 6 feet wide. So at 1/8 scale. So I'm going to find 6 feet right there. Okay. Do that. I'm probably going to do that on 2 sides so I can control it. 6 right there. I'm going to find a circle that fits that size. Okay. All right, maybe that one. That's pretty close. All right. Now I've kind of got my guidelines, right? So I've got the kind of framework now of my walkways. I'm going to erase some of these construction lines and I'm going to ink those in. Pencil, because that's what's handy. This is kind of how you can see my little walkway is taking shape. The little garden areas are taking shape. Now, if I wanted to do a really big grand scale, a Versailles scale, I might do a scale that's 20 scale, and those walkways are something like, 20 feet wide or 15 feet wide. So it depends on what you're trying to accomplish and how much detail you want to show and what scale you're using. So I'm giving you some freedom So you can practice playing with different scales for better or for worse. And now I'm going to draw this in with my ink. Nice dark lines. I'm going to come in one circle. So I'm going to make like almost a little, actually 2 circles to make like a little curve in there. A little edge to my space. Probably put some kind of a sculpture in there. I had that bigger circle over here. So I can draw those arcs in now. Right? And I want to make sure I don't go through my pathways. So I just want to draw in the parts of the arcs that I need. Okay. Draw this outer edge. Let me think. I'm going to keep it pencil for now because I might want to make those edges a little bit softer, like less hardscape and more shrubs. So now my edges are going to be smaller because they don't need to be, I don't need a 6 foot wide head. So maybe I'm going to make my shrub beds 3 feet wide. 1/8 scale. There's 3 feet. I'm just going to put some guidelines around so that I can have a reference when I use my little roly-poly drafting tool. Even better if you have a T-bar. I like to have at least 2 points because that makes it real easy to get a nice crisp line. If you don't have a parallel bar set up like we do on the campus. So here, that. I want to mark that 3 feet over here. It's not 3 feet. Right. There's 3 feet. Okay. Again, I'm just making some guideline marks because I decided I'm going to have a 3 foot wide hedge around my space. Okay, I've got guidelines in for the most part. Okay, I'm going to continue to draw in pencil. And I am going to just bound these edges about 3 feet wide. And these are guidelines. Again, I'm going to ink all this in because ink is our friend. If we need to remove ink, we can just use whiteout. It works great. You notice I'm leaving that inner arc out because I'm going to use yet another circle to define that. I was smart. I could have picked up this piece over here some time. Save myself some trouble. And I'm lining it up over here. A little bit darker. I've got some guidelines set up. A little bit of it is inked in. I'm going to do this larger circle. Not quite. Okay, so we're going to go the pencil method. I like these compasses. Is I can find the center. Where the center is. Swinging a quick arc. The guideline. Not like the surface any more than my rolling writer does. Having to adjust a little bit because my surface is a piece of cardboard and a bit wonky, but I generally have it. And I'm going to freehand this in. So for me, I only need some quick guidelines. So I can work with this. So I've got about a 3-foot border now outlined, and I'm going to take my medium pen. No, I take this one. And I have some symbols that I can roughen up to make like hedges. For this outer one, I'm going to keep it a little loose and free because these are going to be my little boxwood hedges. I'm just doing a little bit of a wiggly line along here. So on this, I want a little bit of artful to it, right? Trying to make that edges look a little less formal. But, you know, some of these circles, I want very formal drafting to make sure it looks clean and neat. So it depends on what I'm drawing with my final product. And this planting's a bit softer. So I want that kind of artful look to it. But I start with the framework of the formal lines underneath it to make sure I'm holding that form and that it ends up reading as it should. Purposely giving it a little bit of a wiggle because planting isn't so hard lined. All right, so we have my hedges. We have my little central piece. I'm going to say my central piece is going to be some kind of sculpture of a Greek god on a plinth here. I'm going to create my little sculptural piece here. So it's a Greek god from above. I'm going to have this be a little bit more rough, like a big chunk of marble. I have planting around it. For my hardscape, I'm going to show a little bit of a stipple like we did early on in this class with pen waves to show that that's actually like a gravel or decomposed granite surface. You'll notice I tend to draw, when I'm drafting, I start with the ground plane and work my way up and layer that up. And that's because even though I'm going to add trees to this, I like to, the trees need to be see-through, almost where I can see the ground plane down below it. Okay, so I'm going to add some trees to my design. I think I'm only going to be able to fit a couple in each quadrant here. I guess we're doing 2. Hoping for 3, but 2 it is. So I've got little small, it's almost like shrubby trees. You know, if I check the scale of this, these trees are about 14 feet wide. So they do like small little patio trees in here. I'm just gonna seep out over the edges a little bit. Again, drawing just some rough outlines at the moment, just to, so I can draw their little shapes in better. Theoretically, I should have done an arc out here to set these, but I am not going to worry about it at the moment. I'm going to keep drawing away. But this doesn't take forever for you guys to watch. Kind of like, I always like to put the center point of trees, helps me keep track of how they, where that trunk is located in the landscape. A little bit of overlap on them. Right. My trees in. I'm going to go ahead and draw them again. Outlines of trees in a heavy pen. But it's okay if I'm drawing over my earlier graphics. And I'm kind of bleeding them together. You know, I don't have to completely make them separate if I don't want to. You'll notice at this point in my career, I tend to do quick, fast graphics that read well. A lot of the times that's because I'm coloring. I know that I'm going to add color at the end. In this particular assignment, you have the option to add color or not. So I will leave that up to you. So on this one, because I'm going to try and keep this video quick, I'm just going to add some graphics to it to make it stand a little bit more on its own in black and white. You guys have been given some resources. You can do whatever tree symbols you like or shrub symbols you like. The idea is to give this a little bit of dimensionality so it looks a little less flat because we are drawing in a 2-dimensional space. So I want to layer the graphics so that they start to read, so that the ground plane stays low, and as this planting emerges, they get a little bit kind of piled on up higher. So I'm going to add some little topiaries at the corner of my design. These are just going to be like small little conical shrubs. I'm right in the corner. Little mini spiral shapes. And maybe I'll make a little spiral shape to it. Get it to read a little bit. On these, I think I'm going to stick with a plain circle. I'm going to that back, do a heavy circle. Now in the center of each of these areas, I'm going to create some kind of shrubs that maybe have a little bit more volume to them. So I might use a little heavier pen. And I'm just going to make it kind of rough and irregular in here again. That I've got this kind of understory of planting. I go right around the middle. So my trees are planted in that. It goes around these little topiaries at the corner. And so on these, I might add some texture. Actually, I'm going to make these darker because they're starting to blend together. I want those trees to read a little bit heavier so they start to rise up. On these, let's see. I'm going to do a little bit of texture along here to make them seem a little bit taller than some of the other ground planes going on around it. And again, if I was using color, you know, this would be very easy to differentiate these layers, but we're not necessarily doing that tonight. I'm not requiring it. Feel free to break out your pencils. I think, you know, I'm looking more at the scaling and symmetry of the space. Did you leave enough for people to walk? Have you kind of replicated the pattern on each side? I'm going to make my statue a bit bigger because it's higher up. So maybe my rock, I'm going to make my statue guy in plan view. So we're looking down like a bird, a little bit darker. So he starts to rise up off the surface. And then this rock around it. A little bit darker. So I'm going to just add some texture in for my planting along here. Again, lots of different textural patterns in some of your handouts. So reference some of those earlier handouts we looked at. So I have a little parterre garden. I just need to add some little small ground cover along here. Along my little, kind of this like a little curb edge. And then it's done. And I have created a parterre garden to 1/8 scale that is quite lovely and quite suitable for someone to enjoy. And it's as simple as that. So play with the scaling, focus on these pathways. So if you just have one person who needs to come through and maintain it or collect herbs, generally you're looking at about a 2 to 3 foot width. If we want 2 people to walk down side by side, we're looking at about a 6 foot width. Most city sidewalks are 4 to 5 feet wide, so it's a little bit tight for people to walk side by side. It's possible. 6 is a good width. If you want to have a whole group of people, think about our campus and how wide the walkways are there. We might have a 8 to 12 foot walkway, or even a really grand paseo would be like a 15 foot. That would be the size of a freeway lane, right? So think about the size of the walkway. Think about getting things symmetrical, and that will be your parterre. And certainly color it if you want. It's a lot prettier when it's colored, but I know you got a lot to do with some of your other assignments, so I didn't want to pile that on too. We will get to coloring. All right, so enjoy plan view rendering, and I will see you next week.